while back, I was sitting on my bed and I was looking at Isaiah chapter 6, and I was seeing this chapter in a whole new way that I had never seen it before. I was being filled with what appeared to be a sudden revelation from God. The chapter describes the king who sits high and exalted on his throne, and the seraphim next to him in the Jewish temple. I was focusing on the part where the threshold of the temple shakes and smoke fills the whole temple. The seraphim say, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty." Isaiah is filled with a sense of doom, seemingly as the temple is filled with smoke from the utterances of the seraphim. I figured that this smoke was a smoke screen that was separating Isaiah from God, which filled him with unbelief and convicted him of his guilt, and he was doomed, for he said, "I am ruined." But as all this flashed in my mind on the word smoke, my big Bible started to slide off my lap, and I shifted my hands to catch it, and the bulky pages slid, flipping a big portion of the pages to Ephesians 2, where my eyes immediately shifted without thought to Ephesians 2:2. I was reading a parallel Bible, and the translation my eyes shifted to was the Message Bible, where it said, "breathing in the pollution of unbelief and exhaling disobedience." The KJV said, "the prince of the power of the air," and referred to the children of wrath and disobedience. So there appeared a connection in my mind, in my spirit, from the prince of the power of the air to the smoke from the seraphim. At the time, I was beginning to discover theories about mind control and MK Ultra. I had not yet heard of Project Monarch, but I knew that this subject dealt heavily with psychotronic warfare and the use of electromagnetic waves in order to implant thoughts and voices in people's heads, whether there was any use of microchips or whatever. I used the concordance to find out what seraphim actually meant in the Hebrew, and I found that it signified a copper color and a burning one. So perhaps seraphim was as a copper serpent-like creature who appeared to be lit up. It also meant to burn, which is what happened to Isaiah. What came to my mind was the seraphim looked like electricity, like the symbol for electricity. When I pictured the king on the throne, high and exalted, it made me think of a huge radio tower where the seraphim represent the electromagnetic waves issuing forth from the tower, and these waves fill the whole temple. For it says that the train of his robe had filled the whole temple. So perhaps radio waves were like a large robe being, covering the entire temple, covering the entire world. In fact, this whole chapter in Isaiah reminds me of classic ritual abuse. Here you have Isaiah in a temple, which is supposed to be a place of God, being burned presumably by a pastor-like figure in the temple. A hot coal is placed on his lips. Abuse in the temple was taking place. I had also learned in my study of MK Ultra about a man named Erwin Cameron, who was a psychiatrist contracted secretly by the CIA to perform mind control experiments on unwitting subjects. The methods of Erwin Cameron included putting the patient on a tremendous cocktail of drugs to annihilate the patient. Patients would lay in bed for days while Erwin played a tape player of voices that would repeat messages over and over again, such as, "Your mother hates you," and "You are a bad person, and you hate your mother," as well as the use of electroshock therapy to the skull.
Hello, Thomas. How are you today? You can look at yourself in the mirror, Thomas. Do you know what day it is today? What is the name of the street where you go to school? You aren't going to school these days, aren't you?
All these questions are hard work. Would you like to go back to sleep? After only 12 weeks of induced deep sleep coma and just a few sessions of shock treatment, this patient has almost reverted to childhood.
Are you going to tell me why I should report this as a great success?
It shows that we are on the right path. While traditional psychoanalysis removes one layer at a time, with my treatment we drill straight through to the innermost core of the patient.
And then, Doctor? What do you hope to find in the innermost core?
How did Aristotle put it? A blank slate, an empty space upon which nothing has yet been written. A tabula rasa. Soon we begin phase 2.
Phase 2?
Psychic driving, depatterning and reprogramming, starting with a clean slate. That's what you've been waiting for, isn't it?
Now, the electroshock therapy is interesting because it involves the placing of electricity to the skull, just as the seraphim, the burning copper, places the live coal on the lips of Isaiah to erase his sin. The purpose of these experiments was to erase the memories and personality of the subject, and then to rebuild the subject in the image of Owen Cameron. And usually the erasing of the memory and the personality was as a form of behavior modification, which is to suggest that whatever was being erased was bad.
I'd like to sit up if I may.
Another aspect I discovered was Project Monarch.
Tell me, Miss Wilson.
Project Monarch deals with the abuse of children who are in innocence by an authoritative master. Just as the king, the authority, within the temple, a place that is supposed to be a sanctuary,
Didn't fall off.
is involved in the searing of Isaiah's lips, a helpless individual at this point. But also take note that the name Project Monarch signifies a king, just as the figure on the throne is called the king. So what I'm suggesting is that when Paul says the prince of the power of the air, he was referring to, maybe not intentionally, but he was referring to the king from Isaiah chapter 6. And who knows, maybe it was intentionally. In this chapter, in the chapter Isaiah 6, Isaiah fears for his life because he has seen God face to face, just as Jacob wrestles with the man in Genesis. I believe this is Genesis 32. I find the anonymity of the man in Genesis 32 to be interesting, as well as the fact that this man seemed to not want to be exposed to the daylight of the dawn. This reminds me of vampires, which have been known to not do very well in the light, but also symbolically to represent the ruling class, the power elite, so to speak. For Jacob wrestles with this man who appears to him as making his way, for Jacob wrestles with this man who appears to him as Jacob is making his way to meet his brother for the first time since he had fled his home for fear that his brother would kill him. Perhaps Jacob thought this man was an assassin sent by Esau. How would he really know? But Jacob didn't let go and demanded a blessing. The man gives in and names Jacob, whose name means the deceiver, changed his name to Israel, which was a prince amongst men and God. So we already have a reference to the word prince. It is also interesting that Jacob is basically reborn, having crossed the Jabbok River on his way to be reconciled with his brother at dawn, thus making him son of the morning, which is also a name for Lucifer. So Jacob goes from being named the deceiver, which is the definition of the name Jacob, and a name that is used to refer to the serpent in the garden, to becoming reborn as a son of the dawn, the exalted name of Lucifer, which he had before his fall.
I want to ask you, till the day star shines.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what Peter meant when he wrote that?
The day star rises in your heart. Peter said to continue until the day star rises in your heart. The word day star, Lucifer. Lucifer is the day star. Lucifer is nothing more than the planet Venus. Go look it up in Encyclopedia Britannica. Lucifer is Venus. And Lucifer, being Venus, was the light bringer. And the ancient Roman religion, that's actually based on the ancient Egyptian, just in the morning, the early morning, the priest in the city of On and all the ancient priests who were sun worshippers would go out at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 to 4, and face the east, and when they would see the planet Venus rising, it's a beautiful, if you've ever been up at 4 o'clock in the morning to see Venus, it's magnificent. It's a beautiful, bright sky and the light in the sky. And the ancient peoples realized that when you see that star rising, the sun is right behind it. So it announced the coming of the sun. So it was a beautiful announcer, for the sun was coming. And so it was called Lucifer. Lucifer was the bringer of the dawn, the bringer of the light, and it's called the day star. The day star is the star that brings the day star. Lucifer is nothing more than the planet Venus, period. Go look at any encyclopedia, go look up in any reference work, I don't care if it's Catholic, Protestant, any Bible reference work, it'll all tell you, all of them, they will tell you Lucifer is nothing more than the planet Venus. But it's highly symbolical, and it means something. It means that light is coming into the world. But the scripture says that the light came into the world, but the world was not worthy of it. Intellectual and spiritual enlightenment is trying to tell you something. And what happens when somebody is intellectually enlightened and trying to teach you something? If you're sleeping in bed and you're sound asleep in bed and someone lights up a 600-watt bulb next to you, the first thing you're going to do is turn away. Why? Because it hurts your eye. You don't want to see it. And then you're going to be mad that somebody did that to you and woke you up with a 600-watt bulb. Why? Because intellectually, someone who is brilliant, who's trying to enlighten you, and you've been sleeping all your life, you're going to be offended that somebody has now caused you to have to think and giving you enlightenment. So consequently, that's what we see all the time. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. Lucifer is nothing more than the day star that brings the day. And it's been misused and misunderstood.
Is there a virtuous day star?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Symbolically, there's a very powerful story in the symbolism of Lucifer, the day star, who brings the light of day. It's a very interesting and very important story, yes. We'll talk about it later.
I just want to thank you for all this.
I also want to point out, as a point of interest, that when Jacob and Esau are described in the womb, it shows pictorially Jacob as grabbing the heel of Esau. But back in the very beginning of Genesis, when it is describing the woman's seed and the serpent's seed, the serpent is depicted pictorially as bruising the heel of the seed of woman. I find that a very interesting picture and have often wondered why the writers would depict Jacob and Esau in their struggle in the womb in a way that so clearly points back to the prophecy of the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. Esau wanted to kill Jacob because Jacob had deceived Esau of the birthright. Esau, being worn out from a hunt, had gave his birthright away for a morsel of food which Jacob gave to him. Esau, having no respect for this birthright, giving away his inheritance for a single morsel of food is the epitome of a child of disobedience. As God says, Jacob I have loved, Esau I have hated. He was a man of the hunt, a hairy man, and he had no respect for God.
One day, Esau came in from hunting. Jacob was cooking.
I'm hungry. Give me some of that soup.
Jacob was a sneaky guy.
Give me your rights as the firstborn son, and I will. Okay. If I starve, my rights won't help me.
So Jacob gave Esau a big bowl of soup, and he ate it. Esau didn't even know he'd been tricked. Years later, Jacob's mother, Rebekah, helped him trick his father, Isaac, as well. And Isaac gave Jacob the blessing meant for Esau. So Isaac gave everything he had to Jacob, while foolish Esau got nothing.
It is my contention that the man Jacob wrestled with represented Esau, and Jacob's fear of death from the guilt he may have felt for deceiving Esau when he was younger. Jacob may not have known whether Esau would kill him or forgive him as he was making his way across the Jabbok River. Thus, the man was a spirit of fear and guilt, and at least psychologically an assassin that had discovered him and was about to kill Jacob. Of course, Jacob fought back and won, becoming reborn and claiming his exalted name, having won against the powers that sought to kill him. In other words, Jacob was wrestling with unbelief. In Ephesians, Paul says that our fight is not against flesh and blood, but we wrestle against powers and principalities and wickedness in high places. I believe that this man that Jacob wrestled with was this power, principality, and wickedness in high places, which sought Jacob as an assassin waiting behind every corner, threatening to consume Jacob. But I want to remind the listener again of the fact that Jacob had named this place where he wrestled with the man Peniel, which meant that he had seen God face to face and survived. Isaiah also says this when he sees the king. It is my contention that the king is the man that Jacob wrestled with, representing powers, principalities, and wickedness in high places. The vampiric power elite, which Paul tells us to turn away from and to wrestle with. They are agents of unbelief. Project Monarch is, in my opinion, derived and produced by this man and the king, which confront both Jacob and Isaiah. For when Isaiah was burned in the temple, he was instructed to warn the Israelites about the kidnapping that was coming to Israel by the Babylonians. Because for most of us who try and reveal the true nature of society and the prophecies concerning them, we do so because we have been burned in some way by the corruption and lies that society had delivered to us as truth. The temple was no longer a bastion of truth and salvation, no longer a place to commune with God, but was the producer of smoke and lies and acted as a smokescreen which separates the individual from God.